This episode is presented to you by NFL Sunday Ticket, now on YouTube and YouTube TV. With NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and YouTube TV, you can watch your favorite teams' out-of-market Sunday games, plus watch up to 4 games at once with Multiview. Don't miss the race to the playoffs. NFL Sunday Ticket is now just $39 when bundled with YouTube TV, where you get even more football. Visit youtube.com/Spotify offer to sign up now. Lowest price on YouTube TV with base plan. Rest of 2023 season. Terms and embargoes apply. No cancellations.
Welcome to another episode of The Blue Turf. This is Thad Bell from the Kansas City Soccer Journal. With me, I have Erik Bergerud, one half of the Comets broadcast team and amazing soccer friend of mine. At least I hope he would claim that. How are you today, sir?
I'm well. Hey, it's always great to be back at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome, where the Comets are scrimmaging on Friday, December 22nd, and it just happens to be the 45th anniversary of the first ever MISL game. So happy anniversary indoor soccer.
See, this is one of the reasons I love Erik, because he knows that little fact there about it being the anniversary. How many years?
45.
That's
hard to believe.
Yeah, wow. Sometimes you don't think about how old an indoor game really is in this regard, but yeah. I guess that is why a lot of the fans tend to be a little bit old, too.
They tend to be old. They hear about it from me. But sort of interesting, 2 of the players in that game are connected with this league. You have Commissioner Keith Tozer, who played for the Cincinnati Kids, was a first-round draft pick. I know we're going to talk about draft picks later in this episode. Playing against goalkeeper Shep Messing, legendary New York Cosmos goalkeeper who wound up becoming the New York Arrows goalkeeper, who is the president of the league. So you have 2 of the 3 leaders of this league played in that original game 45 years ago. That's pretty amazing.
And it's interesting because they both were involved in the league. They kind of went away. They've come back now this last few years, and they're working to improve the league in many different ways. I think they still have some things that they can do, but they've been improving it.
Well, and we could talk for 2 or 3 episodes about the differences between the soccer environment in the late 70s and early 80s and what it is today. And I think what is easy to lose sight of is you had a North American soccer league that was slowly declining as the MISL got there. That's a very different scenario. If you look today, contrast where Major League Soccer is and MASL. MISL found a space, they found a window when there was a dying and then no first division outdoor league. It's a very different time we're living in 2023, soon to be 2024.
That's I know we've talked about this before, but we have to do some serious episodes on what soccer meant back then and the growth of the game, and those guys who played in like the 1990 World Cup. So many of them came out of the indoor game. So we got to schedule that for when we have a break.
We absolutely need to do it. Not only came out of it, but after they found themselves without a Major League Soccer, they came back into it. So yes, absolutely another episode.
Yep. And I know Erik's already mentioned that there's a scrimmage going on here, but it's coming across pretty loud in my headphones, so it does provide a lot of ambience. It is a fairly spirited scrimmage going on right now.
And hopefully we don't have to bleep out any of the commentary that's happening out there on the field, but it's for real that they're taking this seriously.
Yeah, just shortly before I hit record, there was a coach telling some players in a very positive manner, but that may have been a bleep or 2 that we would have pulled out.
True, but hey, the way it's set up, I think just taking a step back, let's call it the first 2 lines on one team and the players who don't get as much playing time on the other team for the most part, and it's 2-0 for the regulars at halftime, but it's been pretty close back and forth. Technically, I think we saw somebody go into the boards that if it were a real live game, that would have been a 2-minute penalty for sure. NPSL, that would have been get up, dust yourself off, and at this practice, pretty much that's the way it's going.
Yeah, the only person that stopped to care was the defender who put him into the boards.
There you go.
That's okay. It's kind of like old days and playing at the soccer dome.
It's like playing at the soccer dome. It's like the old NPSL days, and in a way, it felt like that the Sunday game against Texas Outlaws, where pretty much everything went and everybody left everything out on the field.
Oh, wait, there's a couple games we should probably talk about.
We could talk about that. We can also look ahead to the renewal of the I-70 series, St. Louis on the 28th here in Kansas City, on the 31st there. And I actually have some all-time data the professor has given me that I will gladly share with the intrepid listeners of this podcast. Not only all-time Comets ambush, all-time Kansas City, St. Louis, going back to the Spurs Stars day. So look forward to sharing that.
Cool. I look forward to hearing it. I actually had researched that at one point, and that was like before the MLS team came into existence over there, and I never went and pulled it back out. So I'm looking forward to seeing updated numbers. All right, 2 games against Texas on the road. Kansas City pulls out the win, comes home, doesn't pull out the win versus Texas. And what did you see in those 2 games? Because I know you went down to the one and you were calling the other one. So what did you get out of those 2 games?
I would say down in Texas, the offense definitely showed up. Nicolau Neto, another strong game in goal. I had a long chat with Coach Stefan Stokic after the game. What's cool about going to a game in Texas, if you get an opportunity, the Players Hotel is literally right across the parking lot from the arena. So you walk out the front door, you go on the side of the building, and then it's the main entrance to the Mesquite Arena. Highly recommended. So it was easy to get back and chat with him. He definitely felt like they gave up too many goals that they shouldn't have. The power play defense was 0-3, which is really indefensible, and I think that's something that they're going to be working on as well. But great goals from Kansas City. The one that sticks out in particular, it was featured on Wallace Score this week, Nicolau Neto with a long distribution to Zach Reggett. Zach Reggett on his right. Walla score a goal for Henry Ramirez. And so it was a great offensive day all around. But defensively, I have to tell you, when it looked like heading into the fourth that Texas was coming back, I started getting a little bit nervous, Thad, because we've seen this the last couple years where the Comets get off to a big lead and all of a sudden they don't seal the deal, but they definitely sealed the deal on Saturday night.
Yeah, it was getting a little closer than we wanted to see it, though. Coming back home Sunday, they lost Rian to injury. A couple of the younger guys had knocks, so they played the night before. They didn't play the next game. Acosta and Linus. I don't know if you had any info.
Yeah, well, so Acosta, Leo Acosta is how he pronounces his name. He was sensational. 2 goals. We've seen his potential here at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome, but see him on the field automatically there. Linus looked strong again, but you could tell after the game, well, first of all, Rian was not in good shape after the game, and hopefully he'll get back soon, but that really changed for me. That changed everything, tactics, performance on Sunday, because they were having, the Outlaws defender were having a nightmare matching up with him on Saturday. Acosta, losing him, he was a game changer when he came in, and so they had to make some adjustments there in the midfield and off forward. But I think we saw a couple things on Sunday, Thad, and I want to talk about goalkeeping because I thought Ejimadu was just lights out, terrific.
Especially in that first quarter.
Oh, just unbelievable. I think we saw some of the challenges where Rian got hurt again. It really affected things up front. Zach Reggett, another strong game, but they were able to silence Leo, and Kansas City didn't have any answer for that. I thought that was issue 1. And I think issue 2 is if you look at defending, DeBray Holloman and Erik Pereira really stepped up Saturday night. I think the legs really made a difference. And you can say, oh, yeah, both teams were down in Texas, came back. The main difference for me is Texas got to sleep in their own beds on Saturday night. They looked fresher than Kansas City did. And Sunday, for sure, missing Chad Vandergriff and Berto Palmer, I think Kansas City felt it in a big, big way.
Well, I think they missed those two in both games because, like we said, the defense wasn't as good on Saturday. Missing those two guys, when they just had one of them, when Berto was there and Chad wasn't, it was a good defense. When Chad was in there as the pairing, it was really good defense. Now we've missed both of them for 2 games, and it was a not spectacular defensive performance and then a loss. So they're showing how much those two strengthen the early results. Again, we still have to compare about which teams they've played and where they're at in their journeys and all that type of stuff. We still don't really know who we've talked about how we're going to look at the season, but I still don't know that we know who any teams are because teams have played 4 or 5 games, but which opponents, where we're at, and that all matters. We'll figure that out over some time. So this is when Stefan needs to make sure that they continue on the right path.
Yeah, and I would say no disrespect to any other defender on Kansas City's team. However, it's rare when you have 2 MASL Defenders of the Year on the same team, let alone the same line. They definitely miss them. And so we'll see next week maybe against St. Louis. Chad looks to be maybe a little bit closer than Berto, but we'll see on that. I mean, there's a challenge here for Stefan. He has to manage players. You don't want players to have sustained injuries that holds them out 6 weeks, 8 weeks, because then you have serious problems. And we can talk to, if you fast forward to January, they have a long road trip, including 3 games in Mexico, and he's already thinking ahead in terms of player selection, management, etc. But several injuries already, not hurting the cause. I think all things considered, if you were to tell me about a month ago the Comets would be 4-1 in their first 5 games, I'd be pretty happy.
Yep.
I mean, I saw a pathway to go undefeated in November and December, but I'd be pretty happy. I think that after their first 4 wins, some people started thinking expectations high. And you just mentioned that it's a little early to look at other teams. I would say it's fairly safe to say that Monterey is really, 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 really good.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue that one.
And so that's going to be a challenge chasing after them this season. But in the end, you want to get them in a Eastern Conference Championship style playoff series, and you're going to have to beat them one way or the other, whether it's in Kansas City, whether it's in Monterey. It's just sort of a question who has home field advantage.
Which I think Monterey does have a pretty good home field advantage at this point, but we'll see when it comes down to the wire. Because, again, teams change. Because all it takes sometimes is 1 or 2 injuries, and a team can go from being absolutely lights out to mediocre. So
going back to both teams and this weekend, I think that one of the formulas that both teams have found is how do we capture our local market, and how do we develop that young talent? And you look at some of the younger stars there on Texas. Luis Morales, who was the league's Offensive Player of the Week, was terrific in both games. Sebastian Mendez has been among the league leaders in scoring. Another strong weekend. And then David Ortiz maybe got in the doghouse Saturday night, was out of the doghouse Sunday, and he ripped 2 goals too. And so you build a nucleus around that. You're going to be in good shape moving forward as a team.
Speaking of young players, Sunday saw the debut of Phillip
Ejimadu. Philly E.
Yeah.
Just remember that. Philly E, if you can't remember Ejimadu.
It's like I can probably come close to spelling it. I will get this down, I promise, or at least get pretty close. Phillip Ejimadu. Hopefully I will talk to him either today or maybe next week about his first experience, but he showed pretty well. Coach ended up taking him out and putting in Neto for the 4th quarter, trying to maybe settle it down and get that comeback.
Yeah, I think so. I think trying to put a rookie in a come-from-behind experience with the stakes the way that they were, I didn't see it coming, but I wasn't surprised by that. Ejimadu, that first quarter was lights out with some of the saves, and you could just feel it. The whole arena was like, wow, who is this guy? I'd say a couple things that I noticed one, Texas was shooting 5-hole against him, and so that's something that he's going to have to adjust to, is that as you spread your legs, you open the opportunity to go straight underneath, and that's something he'll work on. The other thing that I think that you'll see he'll work on is, if Coach Stefan Stokic definitely wants to continue the transition game, and he absolutely does, there's a major difference in terms of how you start the transition outdoor and indoor, the trajectory of your throws, et cetera, and that's subtle, but it's real. And so there was a bit of a difference there that I noticed, but something absolutely just more time is going to get there. But some of the saves, I think the only ironic thing for me on this past week, that is none of his saves were listed in the Saves of the Week nominations, and he had so many that could have been there.
Yeah, and who puts those in, I wonder?
That one, no, that's the league. That's not Kansas City. Neto got a foot save Saturday night, I believe, against Vinny Dantas, and so maybe it was sort of a question of, okay, Neto's in there, we won't do both, but I know that people I spoke with in the league were just like totally amazed at Ejimadu's quality, and I heard from people connected with the league, I heard from at least one other player, it's like, this guy's really good.
And I know we've talked about this a couple times already this year about how good he is, and that he will be pushing Neto for starting time because of his shot-stopping ability. He is still a rookie at indoor, and no matter how good you are in outdoor, learning the indoor game, the way the ball comes off the wall or off the boards above the goal, or just always having to know that even though a shot went past you, you got to get back up and react, where most of the time in outdoor, if a shot goes past you, it's either in the goal or out of bounds. So just all these little things that he has to continue to learn, and getting that experience will probably be valuable in a real game versus a scrimmage, because he's actually down on what you would call the starter team right now. But
Yep.
Neto's not playing right now. At least I don't think he is. But anyway, so he's getting that experience, and I think he will be, like we said, he'll be competing with Neto for starting spots.
No, I think that's right, too. I heard Andrew Coughlin, the UCFC goalie, was on MASL Monday this week, and he talked about from an experience of a veteran goalkeeper working with newer defenders, is some of it is just timing and communication, not so much defensively, but as you transition offensively. Where do you set up to distribute the ball? Where do you set up to pass to one another, et cetera? Some of this just takes time, and Neto is so good offensively, and really in some cases nonchalant in terms of when the pressure comes on. He doesn't freak out, he doesn't panic. He very calmly will find a way to either distribute the ball or put the ball away in a place where he's not getting a 3-line penalty. And you see some of the newer goalkeepers panic right away, and getting 1 or 2, 3 lines all of a sudden causes you to change your behavior a little bit.
It does. But it's just Crow, that we were both talking about how good he is as a shot stopper, and people now have a taste of it, and I think we'll just see him continue to grow over the year.
I think that's right.
All right. Let's officially end this segment and start a second segment. So you might hear an ad here, you might hear a little music. Come back on the other side of it. It won't be that long, I promise. And we'll start back up again. All right, back with the second segment of the Blue Turf today, and we had a little bit of news just yesterday as we're speaking, but by the time this is posted, it might be 2 days. But anyway, the MASL draft took place. Not that anybody would know it if they watched the socials and website very often, but it was officially there. Comets selected 2 players. What can you tell me about them, Erik?
Before I talk about the 2, let me mention why there wasn't 3. The 3rd-round draft pick they traded to Empire as part of the deal that brought Berto Palmer back to Kansas City, so they only had 2. And the league rules are that you cannot trade your first 2 picks, and they're territorial picks, which means you have dibs within your state. It's interesting is since the Comets and Ambush share Missouri, you have to look at Missouri. Kansas is sort of a different matter, and the picks were definitely loco. So the first pick, somebody who actually both picks have played at two different colleges, and I can talk about that a little bit. So Johnny Munoz was a high school sensation in Olathe, was Gatorade State Player of the Year, terrific player. Started off at UMKC. I had a chance to watch him there, and then he wound up transferring to NAIA Mid-America Nazarene University, the 2023 national champions, and a ton of accolades for him in that tournament. And I think his stock rose. And so I can definitely tell you I've had a conversation in the past year plus about Johnny Munoz with General Manager Brian Budzinski, and it's somebody I've been watching for several years. The second player did not shock me at all, no. Which, I mean, and you've seen him here working out with the team at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome. That's Carson Lindsay. So Carson Lindsay goes back in some ways with this facility and with indirectly with the organization, because he grew up in the Alliance FC system, Alliance Academy. Connection there is Brian Budzinski. When he was at Park Hill South High School, scored 30 goals in a year, and he was clearly the rock star player there. Wound up going to Columbia College, NAIA, the home of Nicolau Neto, by the way, where he started goal. Was League Newcomer of the Year, ultimately won League Player of the Year, and was two-time NAIA All-America his first 2 years there. He wound up transferring to UMKC. So you had Munoz start at UMKC, transfer. You had Carson Lindsay start NAIA and then transfer into UMKC. And so he fits the profile of what Kansas City likes to do locally, and really good with his foot on the ball, really reads the game well, and you've seen him out here. He doesn't look at all nonplussed. I mean, he's sort of nonplussed in this environment. He's not intimidated by the professional players, and very comfortable playing indoor. And I don't have access to his Alliance club records, but I suspect he's played many games here at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome.
Oh, I suspect he has, and yeah, he's looked good out there. I mean, as to the point where often the Comets will have, a couple of players out there that I don't really know their history, but he stood out well enough that I'm like, hey, who's this guy with that hair? I'm trying to figure him out. He's right at the moment, he has slightly different hair than anybody else. That's the reason I say that. But he looked pretty good. And honestly, right now, Johnny Munoz is looking really good too, playing as a defender out there. And I don't know. I don't know what their plans are for signing them or what their plans are for other things that they might do, but they both look like interesting players.
So actually, that's sort of a good point to mention that. I don't think we talked about it on the last episode, but the Comets announced an affiliation with the Iowa Raptors of M2 and had already sent a couple players up to get some time. And I think this is significant because you can see other clubs in MASL thinking, we want to grow our own. I mean, Kansas City has, but now that Sunflower State's no longer playing in M3, they're focusing on outdoor. There's really hasn't been another outlet for what do you do with your younger players other than practice time here at the world-famous Kansas City Soccer Dome. Now they can send them up to Iowa and get really competitive minutes. There are a significant number of former MASL players playing M2 right now, so you're getting quality time up there. I think that's going to help with player development. It's a bit of a drive to Cedar Rapids, but you can also get road games in Des Moines, road games in St. Louis, so I think there's some options there for some of the guys who are promising but just can't crack the lineup.
Yeah, and right now the Comets have a really deep lineup. I mean, from top to bottom is all guys that we think could probably contribute.
Let me say, however, I think losing Marquez creates a problem, and I'll explain it from a roster perspective. So they started the year with 4 targets. Zach Reggett, who people are already talking about MVP. I think that's really early to start talking about MVPs, but I totally get it. He's been terrific. Marquez, who's hurt right now. Leo Gibson, who's officially signed relatively late. And Junior Kazim, who is facing visa problems. And so with Marquez out and Kazim ineligible, this is sort of a challenge for Coach Stokic in terms of where do I line up players. The first two games at home against Milwaukee and St. Louis, Leo sat on the bench in the first half, came up in the second, and they went into sort of a two-target mode, and it created all sorts of mismatch problems for the opposing team's defenses. Can't do that now, can you, Thad?
No. That's with I'm not sure when Junior is going to be back, but having those two big guys, and I actually meant to mention this when talking about the games against Texas, is the two goals, I believe the two goals that Zach scored, two spectacular goals. I think one was against Jones.
Yep.
One was, I'm not sure who the other one was against, but when Taiyu was out there, he had him tied up, man. He was literally, I got, again, photos of him just being held, and again, some of those should have been called there, MASL referees.
I have different, there's holding and there's holding. I said this on air, but continue.
Yeah, no, there's definitely a difference. I'm not gonna say like every hold is a call, but some of those probably should have been called. But it was just massive battle out there, and if you would have had Rion out there, somebody of that size and ability, you maybe would have had to have Taiyu on him, and that would have made a little bit more difference in at least scoring goals.
I think that's spot on, because I had a good chat about defensive matchups with Chad Vandergriff earlier this season, and I asked him, so what's your experience in terms of how do you set lines? And he says it depends, and sometimes coaches will set their defensive matchups based on the target. And so Rion did not score a bunch of goals on Saturday night, but if you got to see him on Twitch, I saw him in person, he was just destroying and creating mismatch problems, and that's what you want. Even if the goals aren't coming in, he's drawing fouls, which create restart opportunities, and he was an absolute handful. Oh, and by the way, Mike Jones did not play on Saturday night, so you had serious mismatch problems until Rion got hurt. And then Texas was able to make a little bit of run right after that. But fast forward to a time where you have both Rion and Zach out there, you don't have too many teams that have those two options, big defenders, as Texas does. And so it's going to be interesting as you fast forward into the season, the mismatches that could create, because you're going to have to choose. Where do we put our best defender? It may not even be the best defender. Where do we put our biggest defender?
Yeah, and that's always a matchup for that sort of deciding those lines, be it indoor soccer, hockey, that sort of thing, who you're going to go up against. And it doesn't have to be the guy who that scores the goals in that, but because it draws the attention, it has a vacuum, it pulls people in. Because if you got Rion going up against a 5'10" defender who might be a great defender, but you might drop another guy back just because the size. And it's not even a planned thing; it's just nature. Well, you'll want to go help out your teammate, that sort of thing, which will then create openings for other people in the midfield and defenders to take their shots. It creates that opportunity. And as much as Leo Gibson is a legend in this sport, hasn't performed a lot this year as far as I don't think he's gotten a point yet, but I'm not sure. And he's slowed down a wee bit, but we can see him doing it in practice. We know he'll score some goals here for us, but he's just a different player. He's not that big guy that's going to draw that vacuum in.
Yeah, and I think what's been positive for the Comets, you saw it this week and you saw it before then, is it's not just the target scoring. So you've seen the second forward score, you've seen midfielders score, and the Comets have been able to spread this out. It's a little early to be talking about injuries, but here we are. And going back to a point that you made, that they definitely missed players on Sunday. And so getting everybody healthy is critical. Getting a break till the 28th, I think, will be helpful. You go St. Louis home on the 28th, St. Louis away on the 31st, and then you get Harrisburg on the 6th. And so there's a little bit of recovery time before you start thinking to the most significant part of the schedule, which is UCFC home, which for me is a must-win because then you have 6 games in a row on the road.
It's not a easy schedule, as we've talked about before, and they're going to need all those players up and down the roster to perform when they're called upon.
The encouraging thing I would say is that 2 wins in the first 2 games on the road, which is terrific, absolutely terrific. But as we pivot towards St. Louis, they've been hit and miss in recent years at the Family Arena. That will be a critical game for them because right now every point matters, particularly the way Monterey's playing.
It's now 3-1 to the veteran team, and that was a own goal.
Well, there you go.
Keeper played it out off of a defender that rolled right back past him to in the goal. So there you go. All right, I'm not obviously ever going to be a play-by-play guy.
Should try it sometime.
Somebody would need to be behind me with a bleep button.
That could be possible. Never know.
All right, the 2 upcoming games though: St. Louis Thursday, then New Year's Eve afternoon. What have you seen? What do you expect from the ambush?
Let's take a step back and let's talk about all-time records because this is something we're going to share, and then I'll pivot into where we're at. So I gave the professor a homework assignment. I'm like, okay, here's what I need. I want all-time Kansas City versus St. Louis, and so he did it indoor, and I have that. He also included the current iteration of the Comets, lovingly known as Comets 3, versus the current incarnation, the Ambush 2. But then I also asked him to add in NASL and MLS and see what's shaking. So here's what we have. Between these 2 franchises, pretty dominant for the Comets, 30-15 all-time regular season, 2-0 in the playoffs. If you add in everything, which is all the history of indoor and all the history of professional outdoor, 98-75-2 Kansas City teams lead St. Louis. So, I mean, for me, that's pretty significant. This series started with Kansas City being extremely dominant, and then it wound up changing on the road a bit, and that's where St. Louis picked up some of their wins. St. Louis, their most recent game was a must-2 win against Dallas. They did win it 5-1. Another solid effort by Robbie Christo, who is another dominant, big forward that creates mismatch problems for defenders. I think this comes down to Kansas City playing its game. You know that Paulo's going to come ready to play here in goal. I mean, ultimately, it's Kansas City playing its game. We saw that the first time St. Louis is here. St. Louis dropped a lot of players back, but ultimately Kansas City kind of picked apart and found their open players and ultimately won that game. I would expect something similar. I would expect St. Louis defend first, counter second, score third.
Is that how they've played against other teams besides Kansas City that you know?
Yeah, no, I mean, if you look at their opener against Milwaukee, that wound up being a 2-1 overtime loss. They could have scored more goals, but it was a defend mentality there, which I think is really smart. There's pace on that team. We talk a lot about William Eske. Scored 4 goals against Empire a few games back. His brother is on the team. He has pace. You have Marcel Berry has pace. Stymack. I mean, there are players there that this is a team that's built to counter. It's just execution has been the challenge for the Ambush the most recent years. And so anytime it's Kansas City and St. Louis, you know both teams are going to come to play. I think Kansas City will be confident, hopefully not overconfident in that first game. I think everything's wide open going back to Family Arena. And as I've said, Kansas City has struggled there in recent years. And somehow it doesn't seem to matter what the talent is on the field. Winning in St. Louis has been elusive, and these are the games Kansas City lost the last couple years that they need to win if they want to be considered one of the threats to win the Ron Newman Cup.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And as you mentioned, that they're built to defend and then counter. that has been Kansas City's weakness in the last 3 years. This year it's been much better. Still a little inconsistent at times, and coach has pointed that out to the players a few times. So we've watched them do some very specific drills for that. Not that that's what's going on here today, but he has stopped the drill once or twice to say that this is what you need to do, not that. So I think he's going to be ready for that. And the not starter team just got another goal, but that one was a legit goal.
That's why you play the game.
I'm not sure who all got it because that's just out of my sight, but yeah, it was definitely a little. We're up in a corner, so I can't see the entire field from where I'm at. Feels like some of the announcing booths.
You take what you get. You absolutely take what you get.
All right. Out of curiosity, or just going back to the all-time stats, it's probably a little closer than maybe I'd wanted it to be. 98-75.
Yeah. So if you take out the outdoor, it's still 90-70 all time, and that's go back to 1981 when they first started playing with each other. So, yeah, it was in those early days. It was really tight. I think that some of those early attack ambush struggles, that was a tight era too. What has actually created distance has been these two teams, right? So I mean, it was more 50-50 in those first two eras. The current era has been fairly dominant for these Comets. 30-15, that's 2 out of every 3 games.
Yeah.
And I know Kansas City wants to win all of them, but you would say that's a pretty dominant era.
A lot of it was the Vlaco area.
Oh, I think that's right. And but even still, it has only been the last couple years where Kansas City has started to struggle, but it's been primarily at the Family Arena.
Right.
Oh, one more thing. A hat tip to the professor who, if you're not subscribed to his Hot Winter Nights Facebook group, please do. But on this date, I can't remember what year this was, but it was definitely Zach Reggett's rookie year. Reggett played for the Ambush at Kansas City, and the Ambush won. So Reggett's part of this rivalry. Vandegrift's part of this rivalry. And St. Louis has several former Comets players, and so it's a little reminiscent of those earlier Comet Steamers games where you would see St. Louis players who grew up playing with each other playing on both teams.
And that's part of it because I don't want to get in the soccer capital of the world or the country or whatever battles, but there is really good soccer on both sides of the state. That although, as you said, Kansas City is getting the better of the record at the moment.
Yeah, no, it definitely has, and I think that what has helped this Comets team has been a more consistent effort to recruit locally. I think, and I'm not talking about Kansas City versus St. Louis, I'm talking league-wide. If you were to look at pipeline, I think Kansas City local pipeline ranks among one of the best in terms of how they have consistently found local players, whether it's players who played collegiately in the area or players who, one way or the other, wanted to continue their career. We've talked about Cisco Lopez as an example. We thought we were going to see him play last week and hasn't been there yet, but they've done a really stellar job of recruiting locally. And that, I think, is going to be the difference in the future in terms of which MASL teams rise to the top and which teams struggle.
And that is actually one of the nice things about this league right now is it's to the point where teams are looking to the future. They're not just like, oh, I need a player today, and then the Comets have been doing pretty good about this. You know, how many of these guys played at Park or UMKC and, locally and played down here and would come in scrimmage with the guys in the off season or whatever, and it just became okay. Now they get signed as a Comets, but I think more of the league is doing that because there is a stability now with the league. Going back kind of full circle to the leadership with Keith and Shep and JP. I still think there's a lot of things that they can fix or work on, but it's the stability that allows a league to grow, and that's part of that sign.
Well, and I think kudos to the league in terms of how they set up the college draft, making the first 2 rounds territorial, is they're basically willing the teams recruit locally for a couple different reasons. One, I think that's good for culture / the fans, but 2, it's smarter in terms of drafting somebody who's from your area, who has roots in your area, and might see it as more viable option for them than otherwise would.
And pulls in a few extra fans and cares more because it is a local team.
Sure.
A lot of people don't care as much about playing for a team in some other state as they do playing in front of people they grew up with.
Absolutely.
All right. You mentioned earlier about teams can't trade the first 2 rounds. Could Texas and Dallas trade in the same spot?
No, my understanding is that's good. No, my understanding is there's no touching those first 2 round picks. The question is what you do with your third. And if you look at the draft board, teams primarily stayed local. So they didn't venture too far of, well, I'll draft this D1 player halfway across the country. I want to get somebody I have the best shot of signing, or at least giving them a good look. And for the most part, not everybody, but for the most part, teams stayed local in that 3rd round too.
All right. Anything else we should cover before we let the listeners off?
Just sending great holidays, Christmas, Kwanzaa wishes to all our listeners, and really looking forward to a great 2024. I think it's going to be an exciting year for all sorts of soccer in Kansas City. Not only the Comets trying to make a run, but you have the Current with a new stadium, MLS ramping up sooner than we know it, Lionel Messi coming to Kansas City, Copa America coming to Kansas City. I think 2024 is going to be a landmark year for Kansas City soccer, and the Comets are a part of that.
It's actually a great time just to be a soccer fan in this country with, as you mentioned, Copa America coming here, Club World Cup coming here, the World Cup coming here. U.S. is actually bidding on the Women's World Cup in 2027. So it's a good chance for a lot of really good soccer. I'm probably going to be living in my car with a solar power adapter for my laptop and just try to cover as much soccer as possible.
Enjoy it while you can.
I'll probably run myself to death, but I'll enjoy doing it. All right. Happy holidays, everybody. Enjoy some soccer. All the banter about teams and stuff is mostly just in fun, mostly. But I appreciate everybody listening to this podcast or any of the other podcasts that we do and reading the site. And please go out and support local soccer, whether it's indoor or outdoor. Go support it because that is going to help grow the game, and it's a remarkably good competition. We are out. All right, back with a little bonus episode here on the Blue Turf, and this is Bell, as always. But with me, I have Phillip Ejimadu.
Correct, yeah.
I was practicing that, man. I'm terrible with pronunciation. So, Erik told me I should start calling you just Philly E or something like that.
Philly E, or even Black Panther if you want to.
Black Panther, all right, man. Wakanda forever, right?
Yeah, exactly. Wakanda forever.
All right, man. Well, first of all, welcome to the podcast. Welcome to Kansas City. Welcome to the Comets. You got your first game action the other day. Mm-hmm. How did that feel?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me, for inviting me. Well, my first game was an amazing experience. You know, the environment of playing in the arena with all those fans, you know, with my teammates, it's just something incredible, you know, that I'm never going to forget for the rest of my life.
So for people who don't know, how did you end up with the Comets?
So basically, I was playing outdoor, and some situations happened with my club. You know, my club kind of folded, so I was looking for clubs. I was searching for clubs, and then I have a lot of friends who play MASL, who they are in the league for like a couple years, and they told me like, hey, you have a lot of good qualities to be a good indoor goalkeeper, you know, you should try one day, you know. And I'm hearing that for like a while, for like maybe more than 1-2 years, you know. And then I started doing some research about the league, started watching games, so starting to see the goalkeepers, you know, how does the game really work, you know. And then I said, hey, you know what, I think I can do this. You know, I'm gonna try. Let me try. So you know, I was looking at the KC. KC was one of the first teams I was looking at because what impressed me more about the KC Comets is the organization they have. You know, the years of tradition that they have as well. You know, and just in general, you know, the stadium, the fans was something that I saw on the internet. Like, hey, I wanna play in this club. You know, so I started contacting the coaching staff. I contacted Alan Mayer, Kenny Mayer as well, you know, and then they responded to me back. I sent them my highlights, and then we had a couple of meetings, and then they invited me for the kick rounds. And then I came to the kick round. I spent here a week in KC, and they're like, yeah, we want you. You know, this is your place. And I was so happy, you know, just to join the KC Comets.
That's cool. Because I saw you in practice, man, and I was telling people before you ever got in the game, I said he's an amazing shot stopper. He's going to be pushing Neto for starts, and you have so much quality in this game. It's a big change though from outdoor. So I mean, I can see like you're a really good keeper, but you're going to have to like learn things still. So what's been that learning curve, man?
Oh yeah, I mean it's a big difference. Coming from outdoor to the indoor, especially being a keeper, you know, I'm every day learning something different. You know, when like especially my first year, my rookie year, I'm gonna have to learn the whole game. You know, and I'm learning a lot from Alan, from Kenny, from the coaching staff, from all the players, especially from Neto as well. You know, he's a good goalkeeper who's here in the league for a few. So I'm just happy to be here. I'm learning a lot, trying to get the wall, trying to get how the wall works as well, the rules. But you know, I'm doing a good job.
Yeah, because I mean, in outdoor, if the ball goes past you, you're like, okay, it's a goal or it's gone over the end line,
Yeah.
right? Now you got to turn around really quick and make sure it's not off the wall and coming right back at you again, right?
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is, like, I like taking shots, so I think I'm in the right sport for now. You know, I'm always aggressive. You know, since little I was an aggressive player. You know,
Yeah.
especially in 1v1 situations. You know, air balls. You know, so my thing is being aggressive. So I think like this being aggressive in this sport is helping me a lot. You know, so I can focus in some other things instead of the 1v1s and some other shot stop situations. So basically, yeah, that's it.
And I try to come at least one practice a week, but from one of the things I saw about you that I really appreciated was that it was after it was last week or the week before, it was after a scrimmage that you had given up a goal, and you like pulled people in and said, how should I have played this? So I can't remember like which coaches, but you pulled them over and it's like, how should I have played this? Because it was like one that went off like over right off the top of the goal, and you didn't react right.
Oh
to
yes,
it.
yes,
and,
yes.
And you're like, how do I play this? And you guys like played it a few times. And,
Yeah.
you're making sure that you're learning each one of these little things that you encounter, right?
Yes, I mean that's my goal. I mean I'm here obviously to play, but my most important thing is to learn the sport. You know, so for me to play, I need to learn the sport. That's my number one goal here. You know, learn the sport. So basically, after training, you know, I have a lot of good mentors here, especially the coaching staff. I'm always asking, hey, what can I do better in this situation or in that situation? So we trying to like rewind the play. You know, kind of like I'm just trying to demonstrate what I could do better, you know, how does it work? So that's helping me a lot, you know, just like hearing some other experienced players and giving their opinion to me so I can, you know, the more information I grab, the better I get, you know.
I know I'm a soccer fan from indoor, outdoor, everything. But I always said if somebody would pay me money, I'd play indoor over outdoor, just because the action, it was the involvement. How have you what have you thought about the indoor game now that you've been playing it? Just because sometimes keepers might sit there for only to face 3 shots a game, but that you might face 3 shots in 5 seconds.
Exactly, yeah. That's what I was gonna say to you. Like in outdoor, like if you get 5 shots in a game, that's a lot.
Yeah.
Now in indoor, like you can get like 40 shots per game, and that's pretty fun. Not only just getting shots, but like the crowd, the environment, how the game works. It's a fun game. It's a fun sport to play, in my opinion. So I don't regret at all making this transition to indoor. I'm really happy from what I've seen so far. So I'm really just enjoying the sport and trying to get to learn every day more.
Yeah, it's a fun sport for me to play, or used to be. I'm a fat old guy now. I don't do that. But just in that first quarter the other night, man, I don't know how many shots you faced right off the bat, but you just made some spectacular saves. Were you like coming up smiling off of those?
Oh well, first of all, those first saves, the game came hot. It started hot. First of all, I wasn't even sure I was gonna play that game. I had an idea, but I wasn't like 100% sure I was gonna play that game. But like, all I needed was the first save for me to get into the game, for me to start confident, because I believe that all the keepers, once you make your first save, you're into the game, And my goal was like, hey, I need to make my first save. Once I make my first save, I'm going to help my teammates, and we're in the game, especially me individually. I'll be in the game, and I'll be helping my teammates as well. So after the first save, I felt very comfortable in the game, And then just shots after shots, and I just started doing my thing,
So, what would you want fans to know about you, man?
Well, first of all, I was born here in Minnesota, Minneapolis, Minnesota, but I grew up in Brazil. That's why I have this little accent, So, yeah, I was born here, and then with 7 years old, I went to Brazil, and I grew up my whole life in Brazil because my mom is Brazilian and my dad is Nigerian. So basically, my whole life I grew up in Brazil.
Couple good soccer countries, man.
Oh yeah, it's a good mixture, right? And then when I turned 18, I came to the U.S. and then I started my professional career. My Black Panther nickname, it was Coach Stefan gave me that name. He said, like, hey, you look like Black Panther. You're very tall, you're very aggressive, you're very explosive, so you look like Black Panther. So let's give you that nickname. So he started just calling me Black Panther, doing the cross on the chest, and then just that name just sticked, You
need to get some gloves that have like the panther claws on them.
Oh yeah. Bill, he brought me a photo autographed by the real Black Panther, before he died. He got that for me. That was incredible. That was amazing.
Yeah, no, that's pretty cool. Dang. I don't have a good gift for you, man. I'm sorry.
Oh no, you good. Don't worry.
So what do you do when you're not stopping shots at the Comets?
Well, basically, I like hitting the gym. I like talking to my family.
Are they still in Brazil or?
So no, my family right now, they're living in Rochester, New York.
Okay.
Yeah. So basically, every off season or whenever I can, I go back to New York to see my family. I like studying as well. I like playing video games, just hanging out with my friends. Nothing too crazy, Just in general. I'm a very family oriented guy. I like going to church. I'm a Christian guy, so I'm always following the Word of God as well. So that's usually what I do off the field.
So do you speak Portuguese well?
Yeah, I'm fluent in Portuguese. Fluent English. I would say kind of like a little bit of Spanish, not fluent, and a little bit of Igbo. That's the language of my dad in Nigeria.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's cool. Man, I'm trying to relearn Spanish. I used to kind of know it, but I'm trying to relearn it now.
I mean, it's not too hard. Once you get the basic of the language, you just keep going,
Yeah, I'm old. It's hard to like learn.
No, you're not.
But it was kind of funny because I asked a Brazilian coach one time, what's the difference between Spanish and Portuguese? And he said that Portuguese is Spanish with a French accent.
Kind of, because most of the words are similar, The grammatic is pretty similar, So, for example, like a lot of words, you just change a letter or two, maybe the way you pronounce it, but most of the words are almost the same, So that's why we Brazilians have it's easier for us to communicate with the Latino guys because it's almost the same,
You can kind of understand each other.
You kind of understand,
Yeah, that's cool. All right. What would be something you'd want the Kansas City fans to know about you, or just what would you want to say to the Kansas City fans? I guess.
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you guys for the support. It was amazing how they treated me since I got here. A lot of people welcomed me to the city, to the team. Everything just been amazing so far. So I just want to thank you, everybody. Just keep trusting me. I will give my best. In and out of the field, and hopefully one day I'll make everybody happy.
I have confidence in that, man. It may not have been the best game of the Comets this year for this last game, but you made some spectacular saves, and I don't think any of that was on you. So I think you'll pull out some definite wins here soon.
I appreciate it. Thank you very much. That's the goal.
Run out that tunnel a few more times this year.
Oh, yeah. Hopefully. That's so fun, man. Just run out the tunnel, make the Black Panther sign. It's so cool, man.
All right, man. Appreciate it.
Thank you very much, man, for having me.
Yeah, we're out.
I like a good challenge.
Coach just told me he likes a good challenge, so what should I ask him next time that I have him on here? You guys can send questions, and we can really challenge him. All right. Every time I've sit here at this table with you, it has been a good result until this time. You guys ended up finally getting your first loss as the head coach. What happened, and what are you doing to make it better?
I guess a lot of little things, put together. I think we have a lot of injuries. And again, I'm not blaming any of these faults, but I think there's a lot of little things that came to intuition in the back-to-back game. Especially, we had the extra travel because we had to travel there and back. So and then the injuries that we had, kind of took away a little bit of experience and what we needed. Not that the young guys that played, did bad, but I think, especially with playing back-to-back games, the difficulty becomes, how can you transfer your thoughts in the game with heavy legs, right? And I think we on Sunday were very heavy, especially with the game that we had Saturday, the high pressure that we did, and but I think in my opinion, to be honest with you, our quality wasn't good enough. I felt like we made too many mistakes, especially out of the back, with our decision making, with our passing. In this game, I think the stat was in the third quarter, Texans had 5 shots, and out of those 5 shots, 3 go in. Out of any of the half, that was the less shots they ever had in any quarter. So, I think I felt like some things went their way as well, and didn't go our way. But it's I think this is good that it's happened to us because now we can learn from it and get better. And we've been working hard, preparing. The challenge from me to my players now is what's the response, right? We failed one game. The next game is the most important game for us this season. How we respond in this game against St. Louis is going to determine how good of a team we are, in my opinion, because a failure is only when you don't improve. So you fail one day, but if you get better the next day, it's not a failure. So for me, preparation into that is we're preparing, getting better. What's the response against St. Louis? And going to St. Louis and playing there is very hard. I think our last wins there were in overtime. So every time we play against them, they seem to play really, really good, and that's fine. But I think we've proven that we can win on the road, especially against Harrisburg and a really good Texans team. So for me, now is what's the response after that game?
You went into this last pair of games against Texas with missing 2 of your better defenders, 2 veteran guys who had all that experience. So but still pulled out the win there. And coming back though, how much did you miss having Rian out there? Because he's a big guy who draws attention from their defense and opens up other guys. And without him out there, you had maybe more focus on Zach when he was out there. How much did missing him play into that?
It was a lot. Any player that we miss. When you look at it, missing our defender, missing our forward, missing a midfielder, missing, goalkeeper, all that amplifies into the game, right? It changes up the way you play a little bit too, because, all preseason and in preparation for that, you work on these players. It's not like that we didn't work on other players, but I'm just saying is that your game plan kind of changes because of that, right? If you miss one player in one position, it kind of changes a little bit of the outcome of it, because everything that we do in every position, we put somebody there is because of a certain reason. And now when you don't have that and you put something else that's a little bit different, then it kind of gets a little bit off balance a little bit. So,
speaking of some of those guys, how are they doing?
They're doing good. I think right now we just have a few players, actually more than a few, with a little bit of little knickknacks and little injuries. But hopefully Berto's nothing serious, so we're hoping to see him back sooner than we thought. hopefully, before we go on the Mexico trip, maybe before that, I don't know. Rian is probably, a little bit longer. The good news, though, is not torn, because we thought it was torn, so that's another plus. Acosta's is feeling great. He's not feeling any more of the groin, so I'm expecting him to start training next week. Mike should be good. Ray is good. Who am I missing? I think that's right now.
I think that's all the ones I know of.
Yeah, the main ones. The main one is Rian and Berto. So injury, and Chad will be hopefully back next week.
Be nice to have him back for playing against St. Louis, right?
Yes, hometown, right?
Yes, it is. It's interesting how that rivalry is built over the years, just between the indoor teams and now the outdoor teams too. A different subject, though, is the MASL draft was this week, and you got a couple of guys. What can you tell me about them?
Yes, we're very excited. Carson Lindsay, he's been training with us, a defender, pretty quick. Of course, needs some experience and work on this level, but we were really happy what we saw with him. And then Johnny Munoz, very good player. They just came off winning a national championship. A goal scorer, very good technically. So for us, is just building that future and foundation for this organization is very important for us. So we felt like that those two kids will eventually have an impact in this organization.
I mean, you guys already have a pretty good and deep roster. Are we going to maybe see these guys signed in the near future, or
we'll see. I mean, at this point, we want them to come in here and see how they do in this environment, because the indoor game is so different than the outdoor game, of course. But we're always looking for potential new talents. So, I mean, once they, hopefully, because I think Carson is here, so we're going to see what Johnny, hopefully, can come in the next couple of weeks and see how he does.
All right. Sounds good, Coach.
Awesome.
Anything I should have asked today?
No.
All right. Appreciate the time, and have happy holidays, man.
Yes. Merry Christmas. Thank you.